May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Imagine, if you will, a world in which these few sentences from Matthew are the entirety of what we know of the birth narrative of Jesus. Imagine no knowledge of the Annunciation to Mary, the companion story of Elizabeth and John, no idea about the angels and the shepherds. Imagine what kind of Christmas pageant we might have on Christmas Eve, with only Matthew to inform and guide us. The Magi are still far off in the future. Perhaps in one corner, a town well, with grandmothers clustering around whispering to one another about Joachim and Anna's young daughter, who was thickening around the middle. A humble clay house in another corner, with a young girl totally bewildered and trying to tell her parents that she doesn't know how this came about. And standing over there, a young man, confused, hurt, perhaps angry, also bewildered. How did he find out? Did Mary tell Joseph she was pregnant? Did he hear the whispers of the grandmothers? Did he notice and wonder and just ask her what was happening? Remember, in this time, a betrothal was not an engagement as we think of them today. It was a sealed and done deal. The agreements between the families were made. The documents were signed. They were married by law, but not yet in relationship. Remember also at this time, to be righteous was a very good thing. Scripture tells us that Joseph was righteous. The word had not yet acquired the cynical and judgmental overtone that presumed the word self attached to the beginning. Righteousness was the goal of the faithful person. Even though, as Christians, we point with pride to the fact that Jesus came from an ordinary family, when we celebrate his birth every year, we gloss over the real people in real relationships element of the story to wonder at the miracle baby, the pristine Mary, not disheveled a bit, and the pretty angels and the sweet thoughtfulness of the shepherds. Our daughter was an Advent baby born on December 10th, 25 years ago. Her birth mother was just a few months over the age of 14 when she was born. She'd been pulled out of school that fall by her parents with the excuse that she had hepatitis and could not be around other people. They lived far enough out of town that no one had to see her. Her younger sister, who was 11, never even realized that she was pregnant till she was told years later. The father of the baby was never told, and we never knew who he was. The only hint he might have had was the fact that her brother, who was a friend of his, seemed to want to say something to him one night when the guys were all hanging out. Instead, Clinton hauled off and started a fist fight with Trent out of the blue without ever explaining why. The fight ended in a draw, and they sat on a fence having beers when it was over, with no words shared. When Trent learned about Meg 2 years ago, he told Dan that one of his first reactions was, "Oh, that must have been what Clinton couldn't say to me." Consequences and conscience impact more than just the individual. A few people in Heather's family knew, but the pregnancy was kept a secret from most. Meg would have loved to meet her great-grandmother, but was not allowed to. We are the ones who brought Meg home from the hospital when she was born, and she was our joy and our light. Even when we became involved with Heather's family when Meg was a little older, and visited back and forth, and had her half-sister come here to visit us, we had to be very careful about what was said to who, because it was, and still is, a secret to many. This is how unexpected pregnancies are often handled, not entirely joyously and with a lot of shame. So here we have Joseph with a no-win situation. The girl he loved and expected to build his whole future with was pregnant, and the baby was not his. Does she love this other guy? Do they want to build a family? How will the community regard him, Joseph? He had always strived to do good and be righteous before God. Will people think he was the one that defiled her? Joseph struggled with his conscience. Following the rules of the day, he could call her out, and the man, if they could find him, and they would be stoned to death. But he couldn't do that to the woman he loved. So he decided to quietly divorce her, even though that would keep her from being stoned. It was not ideal, for if the other man did not wed her, when her parents were gone, she would be abandoned with no one to care for her and support her and her child. Joseph listened to the voice in his dream and listened to his conscience. He did not take the easy step. He did not take the lawful, religiously established, and righteous steps as set out by his faith community. He kept his faith with God by going against the rules he was expected to follow, claiming Mary as his bride, and caring for her, and becoming the earthly father to Jesus. He took on himself the scorn of some in the community, the disbelief of others, and acquired a tarnished reputation, only to be truly righteous in a way most others would never even know it. A couple of years ago, thanks to Ancestry, my daughter accidentally found her birth father and his family. Her newly found grandmother was and is a joy to have in our lives, and has celebrated the gift of this new, previously unknown grandchild far and wide. No shame, no hiding. She essentially put out the equivalent of a birth announcement on Facebook, heralding the gift of a new granddaughter she had not known about by sharing pictures of Meg from babyhood onward. She created a scrapbook that she sent to Meg to introduce her to all the family, since there were so many. Our only child has 7 half-sisters and brothers and 2 stepsisters. The consequence of her unexpected welcome has been a happy and warm connection with a new group of people, and relieved Meg of the worry and the concern about the unknown that she carried for so many years, and has made a positive contribution to the trajectory of her life. Returning to our image of a Christmas pageant, what might some of the images be of Jesus' ongoing life? What were the consequences we can share of Joseph following his conscience and being daddy to the boy Jesus? The words of the Reverend Dr. Janet Hunt hint at some of the scenes we might show. She says, "For where, do you think, except from Joseph, that Jesus got the idea that a father always gives good gifts to his children? Where, do you imagine, did he get the image of the father running to welcome home his prodigal son. Where do you think the tenderness in his voice came from when he said we were to address God as Abba or Daddy, if not from his own experience of an earthly dad? I have to believe that Jesus drew from his own experience growing up with Joseph as his father here. Joseph, who abandoned his own pride, his own long-learned sense of right and wrong, who set aside his fear and worked through the stone in the pit of his stomach, who stretched his own sense of what and who he was responsible for, to just be a dad to Jesus, to give earthly legitimacy to this child of Mary's from the Holy Spirit, and to help shape Jesus' life and his vision in such a way that some of Jesus' best teaching was his own experience of an earthly, loving dad. We began the service today with the collect, which asks God to purify our conscience daily. We, like Joseph, are faced with things, not necessarily this dramatic, that ought to require us to reflect each day on who we say we are as Christians and how we manifest that in the world. This morning, some of your clergy reluctantly tore ourselves from our car radios to come inside the church. Krista Tippett was interviewing the Jesuit father, Greg Boyle, about his broad and successful ministry with young gang members. There were many, many powerful images in that interview, and I commend it highly to you. One statement he made seemed perfect as a description of who Joseph was and who we are called to be. Father Greg said, "We live the God we believe in." Too often we go along to get along because it's just a little thing. We don't want to make waves. Nobody will really know. Or our self-interest tugs us in the direction of not thinking too deeply about consequences. We live in a world today where right and wrong have been turned upside down and justified, and we are all worn out from the conflicts. Yet we must still make our choices no matter how tired or frustrated we are. Matthew begins and ends his gospel account telling us and the world that Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. Joseph lived his belief in Emmanuel, God with us, and was able to accept a responsibility that was world-changing. As we look toward the birth of the babe who became the man who changed the world, how will you live the God you believe in? Where is Emmanuel, God with us, pricking your conscience? And what responsibility is Emmanuel, God with us, inviting you to embrace to help change this world? Amen.